It's November 24th, 2013, and I am here with a friend of mine. Used to be my best friend. It's his younger brother, and we're here to do a little interview. He had an event happen to him back in the summer of 1989 in East Canaan, Connecticut, while he was living as a dairy farmer at Freund's Farm up in East Canaan, Connecticut, which just happens to be, his name is Kevin. For now, on the record, his name is Kevin. Back in 1969, just down the road from where Kevin was living when he had his UFO-oriented ordeal in 1989, we had a UFO event happen to us when I was 5 years old. My name is Mario Gandolfo, going on the record. My mother, my father, my sister, myself, on February 7th, about approximately 7 p.m. at 1969 in East Canaan, Connecticut, less than a quarter of a mile down the road from where this man was living in 1989 as a dairy farmer, we saw a UFO at close range in front of us in our driveway, I would say it was about 300 yards in front of us, just above O'Connor's gravel pit, rose up about 500 feet, and just hovered there as though it was probing my whole family. And I'll never forget how terrified they were, but I wasn't. It was almost like I knew what this craft was as it sat there and hovered for about 45 seconds. Now, I've been dealing with this pretty much off and on since this happened when I was 5 years old in 1969. Recent things have come to light. This past June, I found out about the Reed Brothers abductions in Sheffield, Mass. From 1966, 67, and 69. The things that Thomas Reed has gone through, and his brother Matt, even as recently as 2009, having been abducted in Indiana, where he now lives. I'm here to talk with Kevin, and Kevin is going to tell his story, the same as I remembered, is what he told me literally weeks after it happened in 1989. Now, keep in mind, he lived less than a quarter of a mile up the road from where I and my family saw our UFO in 1969, 20 years previous to when this happened to him in 1989, just up the road. And as a matter of fact, the farm where he was living and working at the time in 1989 is right next to my grandparents' house, which is where I and my family were going to that night, February 7th of 1969, to my grandfather's birthday. So, Kevin, I'm going to just leave it up to you, and you can roll with it and tell me what you've got to tell me and the people that are listening out there.
Well, I believe it was a
with no swearing.
It was a hot August night. I was getting there. I think it was like 8-ish or so. I left my apartment. I was going to take a walk up to the pond, way out in the back field.
At Freund's Farm.
And I was going to get an early night's sleep that night. And I was leaving. There was a car that passed. It was coming from Ben Freund's house. He has a house up in the field. And somebody came and they passed me. And I'm walking up the road. And as I'm walking up the road, there's kind of like it kind of curves with a little wood stretch there. And it brings you to the pond. And as I'm walking down the road, I noticed that the stars were out. You could just see the stars coming out, but the sun was still out. So you could start to see the stars. And I'm looking towards, like, say, Ben Freund's house there, and I look up in the sky and I see a light that's so far up there, but it looks like it's out of place. It's so bright. Now,
Ben Freund, just to stop real quick, Ben Freund's was across the Blackberry River, way up in a lot, out by Freund's Pond.
Across the river,
off of Route 44.
And then there's a little pasture, and you drop down the side of that pasture, and it brings you around to the pond.
It's basically a huge cornfield to the right, a huge cornfield to the left, and just south of that is Ben's house up on the left-hand side, and behind him is Freund's Pond.
Kind of just a little off to the corner of his house,
right,
straight up in the sky.
Yes.
So I'm looking at this light, and within a second, it drops on me like it's a bullet coming for me. And
what color was it? What color was it?
It was a gold. It looked like a piece of the sun. It was a gold ball of light.
Okay.
I thought I was going to die. I thought it was a plane. The only thing I could think of, I was a plane crashing on me, and I was going to die because this thing was going to crash on me. It came down, and I hit the ground. And the next thing I know, I remember standing there trying to look at this gold ball of light. There was maybe, 20 feet away from me, maybe a little farther, and it was like, I would have to say about 20 feet, 15 feet in diameter, a round gold ball of light, and I could not look at it. I could not look at it, and I was trying to look at it, and it was burning, it was hot, and I freaking ran out of the field. I didn't swear. I ran out of the field. I started running out of the field, and it whipped to the side of me. And it's going down real slow on the side of me, and I'm running down the field. I went out to 44, and I tried to stop.
So you're running down south now towards Route 40, north towards Route 44.
I tried to stop cars in the road.
Across the river.
It came across out in the road, over the trees, and then it went back over the trees, and then it shot up in the sky, in the opposite direction.
So you're on Route 44 now.
I'm on Route 44.
Okay.
I run over to a buddy that I had met once down the road, and I'm in a state of panic.
Now let me stop you really quick. Now, where Kevin ran to, was directly across from our old house in East Canaan. Now, that is where we were in 1969, 20 years previous, when we saw our UFO. That's how close Freund's Farm is to where our old house is in East Canaan. Now, that area that Kevin is talking about, that store is right across the street from us, which is right to the right, about 500 yards south of where we saw our UFO, right at O'Connor's gravel pit. Now, fast forward to 20 years, Kevin runs to that house, which is right across from our old house in East Canaan, Connecticut.
And I run in the house. And his wife, his first wife, and him are in the living room, and I run in the house, and I'm hysterical, and I'm telling them there's something come out of the sky and chase me. And I drag them out into their parking lot. And I drag them outside, and I run all the way back over, and I get halfway down the road to where I was, and I start waving it back because I have to figure out what I just saw because I can't comprehend it. It starts to come back slowly. And so I run all the way back, and they went back in the house. So I dragged Chip. We got his I said his name there, but I grabbed his. It's
okay, as long as you know the last name, he's fine.
And we drove over to my apartment, and he parked in front of the barn. We got in the house, and
anytime you want to go to the illustration, I'll just pan down to it.
I noticed that I had a tan, that I was red, and I took my T-shirt off, and I was tan through my T-shirt.
Wow.
And he's telling me I'm excited to calm down, and then we hear, and now it's starting to get almost near dusk. The sun's starting to go down. I hear the cows start moving. I go, listen. All the cows, everybody's.
So you're over at the barn now?
No, we're in the apartment.
Oh, we're still.
And the cows start moving, and I'm like, listen, and then they shush, and then they were quiet, and we never heard them all night long.
But you're in the apartment next to the barn.
My apartment, right next to the barn. It's really close.
Right on the property, the barn's property. It's like 50 feet away.
The whole herd started moving for like 30 seconds, and then they hushed, and they were quiet, and they never said a thing all night. We never heard anything from them. They were completely quiet. So I have to, and I'm hysterical, I have to go back out and look because I can't comprehend what I saw. And so I go down and we hear something, and I think he walked a little bit past the barn at first with me the first time, and we heard something drop and a click, and there was some like weird noises and all that. And
describe the noise.
The noise was like, I don't know, it was like a computer. It was like, it was like,
with
I
clicks?
Don't know, it was like
were there clicks or just
clicks.
like a...
It was like a click. It was
like tonal
like
changes?
Bleeping. It was tones, like, yeah.
Okay.
And it was real sad. Something dropped. Something fell. We heard a bang, and then we heard the sound, in which I could hear the scampering. You could hear this little scampering all over the barn.
I'm getting chills right now.
And
just so you know.
And so and I'm hysterical, and I come back, and we go back in the apartment, and he's trying to calm me down, and I have to look because I have to see what I just can't understand what happened. I have to. And this time I didn't believe in God. I never saw magic. I never had anything happen to me in life. I never had anything happen to me in life like that. And this is all being sprung on me in one day. And so the night flies by, but I go down again, and I go down by myself, and I'm begging him to come down there with me, but he won't go. He will not go past the barn. He stays right in front of the apartment. Outside, okay. I go down, and I'm looking around, and as I'm coming back, that's when...
Okay. We're going to go down to the illustrations here now. Try to raise it up a little bit so we can see it better in the light here.
This is the barn here, and the road that goes out there. And I'm looking out here, and as I'm coming back, that's when the gray stands up in front of me real close and looks at me and stares at me. And with a very intimidating stare, and I can't really understand what I'm seeing. Okay. And I go back to him, and I'm begging him, and I'm pleading with him to come look and see what I saw. And
you actually physically saw...
He won't go. I wanted to call the cops. He wouldn't let me call. I wanted to call the cops.
How tall was this being that you saw?
It was like about 5 foot.
Okay,
like
about 5 foot?
Yeah, 5 foot. It was pretty, it was like 5 foot, maybe a little taller.
Okay.
5'5".
Okay.
And it stood right up. And it just stood right up in between the cows. There was calves there. And they're all segregated in areas, and they would move up as they got older. And in the middle, he stood right up in the middle and just stood there right in front of me. And I walked away, and I begged my buddy to come down and look, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I walked down there again later on. I mean, this night went fast. This was a long time ago. I go down again, and I go past, and I'm in the same thing, and I'm walking back, and now I see in the corner of the barn where they have the pregnant cows, I see a pregnant cow with 4 little trolls with monk suits on.
Okay.
And they don't look like the thing I saw. The other thing was naked. This thing had they had monk suits on, and they looked like trolls. And one of them has a laser, and it's sticking it into the cow's neck. And I'm walking by, and the one on the far side points at me. I run back to my buddy, beg and plead him to come down there and look and see what I saw, beg him to let me call the cops. Finally, he says, and we see, in the night, there were some weird things. We were seeing lights around the place, like coming over Lone Oaks and stuff. And then there was it seemed like there was something in the sky, like in a triangle shape. And then I remember one time a ball of light going from one thing to the other. He said he was going home. I believe it was around 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, I am not staying here. Bring me to my parents' house. But I cannot comprehend what I'm seeing, so I have to look again. Now I look, and he was parked in front of the barn, right here. My apartment's here, and the whole barn was dark because there's no lights on there at night.
Okay.
But in the corner, just adjacent to where the pregnant cows were, when they calve, they come in the stalls there.
Yeah.
And there's a window there, right there. There's a gold. Now the gold ball of light I saw earlier is this big, and it's just sitting there hovering.
So
and the whole barn is lit up. And it's this big. It's like a bowling ball. And then I left. He took me to my parents' house, where I ran in and told him that Freund's farm was going to be invaded by UFOs. I called up Freund's in the morning. I tried to calm down, and I went up there, and I thought I'd have all kinds of proof or evidence. And the smell, the smell in the air. There was something I smelled that night.
Describe the smell.
It was a strong, sweet smell. I never smelled it before. A really strong, sweet smell. Just a very strange smell. But it was really dominant. It was really. I've never smelled it before or after. I thought there'd be all kinds of evidence. My uncle worked there, and I was hysterical. I was crying, and I just.
How old were you at the time?
I was 18 or 19 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I ended up. I couldn't stay there anymore. I would go anywhere in the middle of the night. I would walk up the mountain, and now I feared the night.
Just for the record, real quick, I just want everybody to know that Kevin, literally not even 2 weeks after this happened, we got together because at the time I was living here. I was actually living in Falls Village, which is one town over, and we ended up drinking one night somehow. I don't know how it happened, but he ended up telling me this story, which completely blew my mind because previous to this, he did not know anything about my ordeal, my family's ordeal back in 1969, and this being literally a quarter of a mile up the road where this happened. I mean, this was 2 weeks after it happened. He told me about this, and I was just blown away. And the story that he's telling you right now is exactly the story that I remember that he told me that night. As we sat in his apartment, and it's blowing my mind. So I just wanted everybody to know that I am basically. Everything he's saying is what I heard back then in 1989. So continue on. So
it was 24 or 48 hours after this. I was doing my milking, and I had the kid that was working at the bar, I actually know his name. He had to help me finish milking because I became so sickly ill. I could not. I just was so exhausted. I was sick, and I felt horrible. I was not staying there. I would not stay there anymore, so I would come back to my parents' house, and I would go there to work in the day. This is 24 or 48 hours after this.
Another note, keep that fresh. So, some people that have claimed to have been abducted, some of them get very, very sick afterwards. Go ahead.
So I'm laying on the couch here, and I'm freezing, and my mother tells me that I'm burning up, that I have a temperature of 103 degrees. So she takes me to the doctor, Dr. Patel's in Great Barrington, and I didn't tell him anything.
Now, this is how many days after this event happened?
This is either 24 or 48 hours.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's
right.
Within 2 days. I know it's no longer than 48 or 24 hours, and that's documented there. So he tells me that there's no reason. I didn't tell him about the UFO. He tells me that there's no reason for me to have a fever, and then he thinks I have spider meningitis. And so he gives me a spinal tap, and he couldn't do it, and he was like, I can't do it. I don't think he'd done it a lot. So they had all these people holding me down, and my leg is kicking because he hit a nerve. The fever breaks, and I was fine. I didn't have spider meningitis. And I saw my buddy a few days after that, and I was still recovering from the spinal tap. I was bent over, and I saw him, and he goes, "What the hell happened the other night?" And I go, "Dude, I don't know. I just had a spinal tap, and all this. I don't know." And I do regret telling people, but I wasn't a liar back then. I never, told stories or anything. And that's what my buddies, when they said, "Come on," and I said,
it's like I say, when you speak the truth, there's nothing else left, Kevin.
And they said no. And they said, there's got to be some explanation. And it's true, because 5 years I tried to think of some explanation because I had nightmares.
Right.
I moved back to my parents' house. I quit my job there. I took a bookcase and I covered up the windows.
So it basically wrecked your life.
I feared the night. Yeah, I feared. If I saw a plane, I was in a car, I saw a plane coming across a lake, I would want to jump through the freaking window. My heart would go to accelerate, and I'd want to just run.
And I just want to note real quick, because this area, this whole tri-state area has been, and still is to this day, as a matter of fact, the crop circle that was just found up in Sheffield, Mass., which I'm going to take Kevin to today, which will probably blow his mind, but he's in it this far, we might as well continue. But this whole area has been, for the longest time, and still continues to be a hotbed of UFO activity. New York State, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, it all borders right here up in the northwestern corner. There's just something about this area. And people have to start coming to terms with that and realizing that something is going on here. This is part of the reason why I'm doing this interview right now, why I'm starting to pursue my ordeal from 1969, which has been ongoing right up until this past August. Still high strangeness with my life. Continue, Kevin.
I just, I mean, I had like a couple little sightings, something small, and within a few years of that.
Let them know. It's all relevant.
And then I really didn't see anything after that. But there was, for the first 5 years, there wasn't a day that I didn't sit and think for hours on trying to explain what I saw that day. I'm in a good place now. I think it's part of who I am as a person. I don't regret that, but at that time it was so traumatizing, and I was so alone. I just felt so alone. I mean, it was like, everybody, because you want to convince people, because nobody knows what to think of you.
Right.
And it's just
You mentioned to me just now, as we were discussing this before we go on the air, taping this, that you remember sitting on a bench or being somewhere.
I have a vision of that.
Okay, please let us know.
I have a vision of being on a table, and I'm trying to tell jokes because I'm so horrified because these creatures around me.
So you were basically in shock, and you couldn't come to terms with what was happening.
Whether that happened,
even though you do remember it. Which most abduction cases don't.
A glimpse of trying to laugh, trying to break the ice because I'm trying to tell jokes and be funny because I'm scared out of my mind. I had a glimpse.
What do you remember of the surroundings?
Just being on a table.
What color? What? Anything?
Everything gray. It seemed like I was on a gray. I think I was on a table.
Were there any lights of any kind that you remember?
I don't remember that. I just have a glimpse of that.
Okay,
that's all I have.
You really need to go under. Definitely post-hypnotic regression for sure.
I don't ever remember when I hit the ground. I don't remember how I got like 20 feet away, and I don't remember getting off the ground and getting from the thing there. I don't remember. I just remember standing there after that, trying to look at it.
Right.
And I couldn't look at it.
Okay.
And like I say, I'm not scared of it anymore, and I think it's made me the person that I am.
Right.
I think, years later, people still bring it up to me, and I always, I told everybody, or sometimes I just tell a little bit of it because I don't want to tell the whole thing.
Okay.
I just talk about the light at first because I didn't want to get into the things that were in the barn.
Yeah, I just want to say, and finishing up with this,
I try to stop cars on the road. I try to physically stop cars on the road. I went running into his house. I dragged him out. I had met him once before that.
I'm trying to come up with the right words here, and I knew this was going to happen when I started taping. But the similarities between what happened to you and what happened to me, literally 20 years apart, 69 and 89. Now, in 1987, 2 years before Kevin had his ordeal, which is major as far as I'm concerned. I believe the kid, the guy.
It could have been 88 though. I'm not sure if it was.
I'm almost positive it was 1989, but that's regardless.
I believe I was 19, so that makes sense because I believe I was 19 when I was working there, so that does make sense.
And even if it was, it's only a year. But 1987, there was a huge event where the same type craft that my family saw in 1969 was sighted in Waterbury, Connecticut. Now, this is 1 or 2 years before Kevin had his ordeal. This was in Waterbury, Connecticut, about 100 miles east of East Canaan, Connecticut, where Kevin had his ordeal and my family had our ordeal. This UFO, literally probably close to 1,000 people saw this UFO as it passed over I-84. A Connecticut state trooper was dispatched to the area. He actually took a picture of this UFO. It was about anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 feet above the I-84. People were stopped on the sides of the road. They were taking pictures of it. They all pretty much came out blurry. His was the only picture that came out. This picture, if you go to MUFON, Connecticut, and you click on the temporal doorway, you will see the picture. It will bring it right up, and you click on the temporal doorway, you will see the UFO that I and my family, the same exact type craft, saw almost 20 years earlier in 1969. All right, now this is the same area, less than 100 miles away from where Kevin had his ordeal and we had our ordeal. Now, the only thing that differentiates between Kevin and me is he's describing the UFO not quite as what we saw. Could it have been a searcher craft, a much smaller, which came from the mothership, which might have been what we saw?
There was something there was lights in the sky. They were way up, and they were in a triangle. And I remember one time, like a ball of light going from one, going to the other one.
Okay.
I don't think it was one big thing. I do remember that. There was a lot that went on that night. There was so much went on. It was a whole night. It's just
the whole thing that blows my mind is that previous to Kevin telling me this story, when we sat together that night and we're drinking and we're talking about it, and they just came out, he just started talking about this story. He hadn't known about my ordeal in 1969 in my family, a quarter of a mile down the road from where we were sitting in his apartment, where this had just happened 2 weeks previous. And then flash forward to 1987, where the Connecticut State Trooper took that picture, all within the same area, of 100 miles apart from each other. I mean, there's something going on. And then to Thomas Reed and his brother Matt and his mother and the grandmother getting abducted just over the border, not even 4 miles away in the Sheffield, Massachusetts area. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, 66, 67, and 69. Thomas Reed and his brother got abducted out of their house in 1969, about 7 months after we saw our UFO, my family, in our driveway, in our car, back in February of 1969. It's just mind-blowing. And then now here we are, flash forward to Kevin, and he's telling his story about what happened in 1989. This is all in the same area, give 100 miles of a distance, within a 20-year period. It's just something is going on here, and people need to be aware of what is happening in this area. And
before that, I never really watched any shows. Maybe when I was younger, on In Search of, there were shows.
Oh, it was 1989. There weren't UFO shows on then.
And it was funny. But the thing of it is I've never felt so alone and just
believe me, I can relate.
And I had dreams every night, waking up, just dreams that I was being chased by something, and I just wished I could have made sense of it. I wanted somehow to come up with a rational explanation.
Right.
But
and the thing is, as I was telling you off camera, once you're on their grid, man, you're on it for life. It's never going to go away, whether you choose to remember it or not. It happened, it's happening, and it's just a fact of life. And as macabre as it may sound, and I've said this before, I consider myself part of a very special few people that have seen something, even as weird as it may seem, that nobody else will ever in their lifetime see or experience. That's a weird way of looking at it, but I will take that with me to the grave.
I have, it's just weird that I never thought that I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's what I always looked at.
There's a reason for it.
Because they were there working on the cows. I mean, I think I was just... I mean, they let me. They put up with me. But for some reason, my friend wouldn't come back. I begged him to come back to the bar.
You were definitely taken for sure. Yeah.
And they let me tolerate. 2 times I walked by, and they let me...
But who's to say what happened in between, because you don't remember. I know I know it in my heart that you were taken. I just want to pan on... So we can get this in the light. I want to see these drawings here that you have.
This was the first one. This is not a very good drawing, but they look trollish, and they were small. They were like this. They were like 4 feet.
About 4 feet tall.
4 feet tall.
Yep.
And they had monk suits on, and they looked like trolls. Their faces were big and kind of like they were very no emotion. I remember that. And no emotion. This one here, I never got. These were quite a ways away. They were all the way. There was in the corner of the barn.
Okay.
I'm walking up past them, and I see them over there, and they got the laser, and I'm walking by, and I'm looking because I cannot believe what I'm freaking seeing. And the one on the other side points to me, and they all turn and look, and I run, and I beg my friend to come back there and please see what I'm seeing. Tell me what I'm seeing. I don't know. It's just like I say. If you never saw magic in your life, and then one day you see so much magic, your brain can't handle it. And,
right.
It took a long time to cope with that, and I think it may be the person I am today. That what's important.
So this event happened again
down the road, and I was out in the field, and this thing when I ran from it, it turned to the field, came across. I ran out in the 44.
Route 44.
Route 44. Started to stop cars, literally in the road, trying to physically stop cars. It flew over the trees, went back over the trees, and then it shot up into the sky. And I ran over to my friend's house, which I had met like once or twice
which was
before
right
that,
across
and
the
I ran
road
into his house,
from my old family's
dragged him
house,
out,
my family's old house.
dragged him out, and I ran back, and they were out in their driveway. And
The
I
similarities,
walked
it's just
and
mind-blowing.
I walked back, and I started to wave it down, and it slowly started to come back down. And then I ran back over, and they went back in the house, and then I dragged him, and we went over. And
so this whole ordeal, about how long did it take?
It was all night. We left. Like,
So it was like
at 4 o'clock. It was even sundown when I brought him over. It was still light when we went to the apartment. The sun was just going down. That's when the cows started. And I said, shh, and he's like, I took my shirt off and I had a tan. He said, "You're excited. Calm down."
So he probably thought it was just blood rushing to your body, but in reality, you actually got burned by something.
And I said, and the cows started mooing. I said, "Listen, shh," and they all started mooing.
This is when you were in the apartment, right across from the cow barn.
And they started hushing, and then we heard scampering. You could hear scampering, little scampering around in the barn. Something wrong, but the cows were extremely mellow. They were just all
wow.
Nobody.
I think it's safe to say that from the time that this happened to the time the following morning, that there's some serious missing time that you don't remember. I think it's really safe to say that. That's
Why did they put up with me doing that, running around like that?
They probably.
I was begging him to call the cops.
The thing is, they probably didn't put up with you because they took you and you just don't remember it.
I was begging him to go past.
Tell me about your arm. Tell me. I showed you the mark that I had that occurred.
I don't know. I had a little scar back then that I thought was strange. I never knew how I got it right here. It was years ago. I used to think that, whatever. I don't know. I have no evidence to say that or whatever. I just had a scar because I watched stuff after that and I learned more about it.
Right.
But I have no memory of that night or anything like that.
Damn.
I don't know. I like to think that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Maybe that's,
so what are your thoughts now on all of this? Now that we've pretty much come to the end of the interview.
What bothers me is that I went through this.
Is that
that I went through, and that was
and that they possibly took something from you, and you're never going to know what that was.
I was teased. I almost became violent.
You basically feel used by this, whatever they were.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, when people would say joke, and I'd say, "I only wish it would happen to you.
Yeah.
I only wish you could live what I lived."
Yep.
And that's the worst revenge, because I would love that. That would be the
I just want people out there to know that both Kevin and I we're lifelong friends. I was best friends with his brother growing up, and Northwestern Connecticut, we're part of the few people that have open minds here. There's a lot, Northwestern Connecticut, this tri-state area, people are all conservative, but we're part of the few that are not. We're just country guys that open to things.
I'm a conservative libertarian.
Right.
I believe in truth. I've always been.
But your mind is open. You may be conservative and libertarian, but your mind is open to things like mine was.
I had a closed mind that day. I didn't even believe in the concept of God that day. I was an atheist. I swore I didn't believe in God.
But in their minds, whoever they were, they knew that you were open, even though you didn't. The same as what I was when I was 5 years old when I saw that UFO, and I wanted to know what it was. Subconsciously, I knew what that was, and I knew who they were.
Always opened up.
In the front of my mind, I didn't know who they were. But you know what? I wasn't scared that night. And I'm still not scared. Now, 2 weeks after that, I was absolutely terrified, and that's when the 3-year same recurring nightmare started. Now, you said you had nightmares as well. And listen to me, I'm starting to yell because I'm getting nervous and upset here.
6 years
Hell of an
later,
interviewer.
When I met my first wife, I wasn't even married to her, and I woke up sweating from a dream that the UFO was chasing me right in Green Acres, right on Bond Street. I was running from this craft that was chasing me, and I woke up, and I remember telling her the story. And actually, she did marry me after that. But,
Now, did you ever experience paralysis in your dreams, where you were immobile and you couldn't wake up? You wanted to wake up, but you couldn't.
No, I don't believe I ever had that.
Okay.
Like I say,
it's almost like it's happened to me in every recurring nightmare that I had. It was the only way I can describe it would be like you're still and there's a locomotive blowing through your body and you cannot wake up and you can't stop it and you're feeling the vibrations of it and then all of a sudden you wake up in a pool of sweat.
The only thing that is every once in a while I would get this strange feeling like they were around. Like you get a creepy feeling.
No, this is when you're cognizant. You're in awake. You're in awake. In other words, waking daylight.
It's nighttime.
It's called high strangeness.
Feel like they're around.
It's called high strangeness.
Or whatever, and I just felt this feeling, and it's this creepy feeling like that. And I haven't had that in a long time.
Okay. It's called high strangeness, and this area is just a hotbed of that.
At my girlfriend's ranch there. She's a great place for viewing the stars. There's weird things. Nothing I can, because people all this or that. I have to see something change direction.
Right.
That's the only way I will believe it's a true UFO sighting. If I see something change direction, like dropping from outer space on me in a dime, that's what makes me believe that it's definitely a UFO.
That's just bizarre.
But even after that, though, I was so if I saw a light of a plane coming through, I would want to jump through the window. I mean, I was
Understandable. Well, you were so young, too, you know?
I boarded up my windows.
So it really affected you bad. When did you start?
I went everywhere in the middle of the night, and now I fear the night.
How long did you keep this to yourself, and when did you start talking about this?
I told everybody right away. I went to Freund's farm the next day, and I was bawling. I was hysterical.
Right.
And I thought there'd be evidence. I thought there'd be footprints. I thought there'd be some type of evidence.
But I mean, after that, several years after, did you keep it to yourself for a while and then start coming out with it?
I told everybody, because I could not, and I should have not said anything. But I've always been an honest person like that, and I couldn't hold that back. My friend didn't want anything to do with this and told me that he's a businessman and he did not want to be
I understand.
dragging it. And he was right. That I should have listened to him at the time.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, and I'm glad that you did put it out there, because you still, it obviously, it didn't really, the event itself affected your life like it did mine, but, the negativity didn't affect you because you're a strong guy, like me, and if you've got the truth, there's nothing else left, man, and that's it.
And advice I give people is never have a closed mind.
Yeah.
Keep your mind open so that you can comprehend something that, if that happens, you can comprehend it. Because I wasn't ready to comprehend that. Yeah. And it's like, like I say, if I could show you magic right here, you'd be scared of me. If I could show you real magic that you couldn't explain, and that's what it was like. It's like seeing so much magic. Every day is normal in life. You don't even believe in the concept of God, and then you have this happen out of the thing there, and you open your mind up real quick.
Yeah. I just want to say real quick in closing that, when I first met Kevin, I've known him, like I said, for off and on all my life. I haven't seen him in quite a few years, but he's a good kid, and I'll never forget some of the times when they lived just not too far away from here in the center town in Canaan, and Kevin will be jamming on his guitar, self-taught. This kid, young teenager, and the guy was just like a virtuoso, man. So he's got some superior intelligence going on. The same as with me when I was tested in grade school. I was one of the smartest kids in the class, even though I had learning blocks.
Yeah,
so there's some kind of a,
I've gotten smarter. I figure things out now. I think it had some effect on me because I can just figure things out.
I'm the same way. It's like a general jack of all trades, master of a few.
That's it. That's it. And I'm a heavy though. I'm a blues soul player. I mean, I'm a heavy. I'm a person that can feel emotion.
Well, of course.
And I believe in God now. And that definitely, for some reason, after that, I was really accepting, not religion. I accepted God.
It was life altering,
and I look back because I haven't thought about this in a little while. And last night I was thinking about it. I said, what would I have been if this didn't happen? It really was a blessing. I don't even know, would I even be the same person if this didn't happen?
Right.
Because it changed my life. And,
all right.
And like I say, every day for 5 years, and it got easier as time went on because I didn't have any more experiences. I didn't have
that you remember. That you remember.
I had the feelings there, but it just and then just believing in faith that they never could get my soul, and that's the one thing that helped me. That because
that's awesome.
Well, I want to say there because they don't have emotion. They don't look at us like we're equals. They're very intelligent.
Well, I firmly believe the ones, the ones that took me when I found out this July that I in fact was taken under hypnosis. Yvonne Smith, world-renowned post-hypnotic UFO regression specialist, she put me under, and it was found out that I was taken. And I would love to know why did they single me out? Why did they do what they did to me? Kevin talks about the after effects after seeing it, how they thought that he had spinal meningitis. Spinal meningitis, correct?
Yeah, spinal meningitis, because I had no reason for the fever.
Right.
I had
now
no reason. My mother begged me to get the spinal tap. Right. I didn't want it.
Now here's a similarity. In 1969, several weeks after my family and I saw the UFOs, we're sitting in our car in our driveway at 7 o'clock at night on February 7th. 2 weeks after is when I started. Back then, the doctors still made house calls, and his name was Dr. Gallup. About 2 weeks after we saw the UFO, I started. Do you remember Dr. Gallup?
Yeah,
Okay,
doctor.
Good.
Yeah.
You know, he actually went to Africa after he stopped practicing here and was practicing for free in Africa.
Wow, that's
for,
great.
for medical.
Wow.
Anyway, about 2 weeks after we saw the UFO, as we were sitting in our car, I started getting earaches every night, just about every single night. And a couple of times stuff oozed out of my ear, and Dr. Gallup could not figure out what was wrong with my ears. He would come over, he would do tests, you know, he would put me on medication, and then like a couple months later, it just abruptly stopped. But for those couple of months, I went through 7 kinds of hell. And under hypnosis, I recorded a 5-minute segment. I audio taped the whole session and videotaped the whole session of me under hypnosis. And there's one part that I put up on YouTube. It's actually on YouTube. You can find it, where I talk about white beings, white shadows, putting something into my left ear and hurting and feeling warmness coming out of my ear. And that was the ear that I had all the problems with several weeks after we saw the UFO. It was my left ear, when the doctor would come and he couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And then it just abruptly stopped, like you. You thought the spiral, and right after you saw the UFO, you had this problem. Prior to that, a healthy kid, nothing wrong with you. Then all of a sudden, you get this burn on your body, and then something is screwed up in your back.
It was like a tan. It didn't last long. It went away. It was like a tan.
Right.
It was just like a tan. It wasn't like any blisters, no blisters or anything. It was like a tan. Right through my shirt. I could not look at it. I tried to look at it. I had to cover my eyes. It was so blinding.
I'm getting like really creeped out. Thinking about this. I mean, I've been waiting 20 years to talk to this guy about this, you know, since he told me about it in 1989, and I just put it on the back burner. And like I said, just this past June, when I found about Thomas Reed and the Reed Brothers abductions, and you know, I've been steadily pursuing this really, really severely. And then, you know, fast forward to I come to Connecticut, and I find the crop circle, and I go to WSBS, and Thomas Reed and I are going to be on the show, the morning show, 2 days back to back almost. He's going to be on December 9th. I'm going to be on the 11th at 8:55 a.m. in the morning. Anybody out there that sees this video, please listen in, because this is where it happened. We're both going to be on the air. This is going to be the first time for Thomas Reed talking about his event in this area. He's never been on the radio here in this local area talking about this, so this is going to be huge. We're only going to be a half an hour each, but let me tell you what, I know damn well that he's going to cover a lot in that half hour, and so am I. And hopefully it'll open some people's eyes. I don't know. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
Well, my main thing is that I'm in a good place. You know, I'm not terrified by it anymore. It does bring a painful time in my life, because I was so young, and I don't want anybody to have to go through that, what I did so alone, and nobody and everybody looks at you like a fool, or you know, can't understand, or you know, and that's sad, and I felt betrayed, you know, I felt was mad at the government that they know this is happening.
Right.
Why did they let me go through this?
Well, yeah, I firmly believe, Kevin, that in our lifetimes, that the disclosure is going to happen, and they're going to have to admit sooner or later that they have known all along that they're here, and that they've cut some kind of a deal with these aliens, these beings that you know.
All I know is that you know, I mean, is that the thing is, I could not. I was a babbling idiot. I could not comprehend. So I can understand that if they put it on the news, that everybody would go around like I did that day. That would not be good. I understand that.
Right.
Know, I could right now. I would not be the same person.
But the thing is,
but back then,
right?
I didn't even, like I say, I didn't even believe in the concept of God at that time. But so I mean, it was all or anything that was magic or strange.
Right. But here's the thing. Fast forward to 20 years, okay, from 1989 now to 2013, and look at any given night, weeknight, especially the weekends on your major cable channels, all about UFOs. It's almost like they're grooming us slowly but surely as the years go by for that one big day when the government's going to have to. They're going to have to let all that suppressive information out, and I firmly believe that's what's happening.